Hi there, and welcome on the journey to transform culture. I'm Steve, and I'll be your guide. Well, folks, today I want to jump into a category of conversation called closing the loop on communication. Oftentimes, what you find in organizations, especially if they're larger and spread out, but not always the case, it could be small or medium sized organizations, definitely in governmental institutions, is that there is a system or an addressing of communication potentially in the policy. This is how we want, to communicate and channel communications. The difficulty, though, and this is why I'm bringing this up, is that oftentimes closing the loop in communication requires a proactive approach to your policies, processes, and procedures around where communication is. Specifically, think about it when, I don't know about you, but if you've raised teenagers or, now adults, whatever, or young people, and you teach them, do you teach them to close the loop in communication? It's not enough to say, hey, I need you to find out about X, Y, and Z, and then you hear nothing. It's crickets, right? For the rest of the day, you've heard nothing. Then you have to chase down to find out, hey, what did we find out? Now, you only have to go through that 2 or 3 times before you're slightly irritated enough to say, hey, I need you to, I needed to know what's the deal, right? The follow-up. And it wouldn't matter if you're the leader or anyone in the organization. Closing the loop on communication. It's incumbent on every member of the team to be proactive. Now, this goes so far as to somebody walks into your business, potential customer or others, calls your organization, emails your organization, right? It's a no-brainer if they're submitting a request for an order, right? So, but you need to close the loop on communication. And when you get a request, don't sit on the request. Now, this all sounds like common sense. The difficulty, though, is if you haven't put these specific phraseologies into your O plan to say, you need to proactively close the loop on communication, then you know what you're going to find? These situations popping up here, there, and everywhere. And it may not happen all at once, and it may not be enough to be annoying all in one week, day, month, whatever, but it may be pervasively spread out throughout your organization and over time. The difficulty also is that when you're not proactively following up with customers, and I've seen organizations who are afraid to contact customers once the order is shipped to validate that they've received the order and that everything was good. Now, some have automated this process. I'm not a big fan of that. I really think that there needs to be a human touch. For all the things we can automate, that's one of them. I think it just requires a human touch. We appreciate it as, as customers to be able to hear somebody. At the very least, send an email, that sort of thing. But be proactively closing the loop on communication. And you see this time and time again. Doesn't matter the size of the organization, but typically the bigger it is. And I will say this too, if you're a leader of a large organization, you may audit your satellite companies and plants and sites and all these other things, right? Depending on who you are and what we're talking about. The difficulty is that you can audit someone and say, okay, so what do you do when this happens? Oh, well, then I contact the customer. Okay, now show me. Are you keeping a log? Is there a log? Is there a communication log? You might think, well, that seems like we're splitting hairs. No, it's valid. This is a thing you should do. How else would you ever be able to audit that, after we ship the product, after 48 hours we call or we send an email saying X, Y, Z, whatever. Whatever your process is, right? Whatever you determine it to be for your organization. But there's no way to effectively audit that. To say this is how we do it, well, how do I know that's how you do it if I can't see the tracks, right? So, call, log, email, whatever it is. Now you can spot check some of that, and if you're smart, you're saving those communiques into your customer files, right? That's the wise thing to do. If you have an ERP or MRP and you're not putting that in the system, well, that's kind of a foul, right? And as a leadership team, you should be checking on these things periodically. You don't have to have a full in-depth audit just to do the occasional validation and say, hey, what's going on with this, right? Remember, proactive. We want to close the loop proactively. We wouldn't, in our personal lives, we wouldn't say, hey, XYZ, ask somebody a question and then crickets, right? If somebody never gets back to you in communication, what do you think? They're not closing the loop on communication. So either they didn't do the thing, they don't know the thing, but you have no clue which it is, right? So you're left to assume, which isn't a good thing either. But now you have to do the legwork to follow up, right? So be a good human, right? Especially if you're seeing this on a Monday at the beginning of the week. Be a good human, be proactive in your communication, be diligent with customers and anyone who visits your organization, as well as customers and others, right? You may have suppliers and vendors and all kinds of people who come to your organization or have requests or send communication. Be proactive about that, because when you aren't proactive about it, what it's doing is it's sending a subtle communication to prospective customers, right? And even the vendors to say, okay, these people aren't really, on top of things. They're not really they don't take matters seriously. They're slow to get back. So then what happens is everybody's slow to get back with everyone. Everything lags, and who suffers? The end user of your products and service suffer because you're not being proactive, because you're not taking it seriously. And if you need motivation, remember, it's the end user customer who you should be doing and being proactive for, doing your due diligence to make sure that you're closing the loop on communication. And I would put it right into your O plan to close the loop on communication, no matter where you are in the organization. You shouldn't have to be asked, right, for the information that you were already asked about to begin with. So, all right, folks, remember, close the loop on communication. It doesn't matter if this is in your professional life or personal life. If your spouse or significant other asks you a question, hey, what's the thing? And you just blow them off. Do you think, you just act like it never happened? They're going to be kind of irritated. They're going to be wondering what's going on, right? With the situation. You're leaving them up in the air. You're essentially mirroring poor customer service in your own life, if that's what you're doing. So, same thing with friends and family. So, anyway, close the loop on communication, right? Let's be good humans to one another. All right, folks, hit that good domino 3 to 5 times a day to uplift, motivate, inspire, and just encourage folks. And when we do that, not only are we transforming culture, but we're transforming ourselves, and that's important. All right, hit like, share, and subscribe. Till next time, we'll talk to you later.